You are welcome to the lesson. Once again, I am Tr.Katimbo Richard, teaching mathematics. Today, we are looking at a new topic known as length, mass, and capacity. Length, mass, and capacity. As you see, the word length comes from adjective long, where the abstract noun is length. So, length is measured in meters. It's about how long something is in meters. Anything to do with meters, one will be measuring length. That's kilometers, hectometers, decameters, the meters themselves, decimeters, centimeters, millimeters. Anything to do with meters answers the question of length. Then mass is how heavy something may be, so it's measured in grams. Anything to do with grams, kilograms, hectograms, decagrams, decigrams, centigrams, milligrams, anything to do with grams. That is mass. Then capacity means volume in liters, so it measures liquids. Any liquid is measured in liters, and wherever you see liters, that's the capacity of the liquid that it occupies in a particular kind of object. Now, today we are looking at length, but as you know, in P7, we look at the application. So I brought some of the challenging areas regarding length in terms of application. So I urge you to follow strictly so that you get something from this lesson as you have been before. So the example number 1 today reads, Edith's garden measures 10 meters by 8 meters. She fenced it using 5 lines of barbed wire mounted on poles planted at intervals of 2 meters from each other. To read again, Edith's garden measures 10 meters by 8 meters. She fenced it using 5 lines of barbed wire mounted on poles planted at intervals of 2 meters from each other. Then the question, or part A of number 1 reads, how many poles did she use to fence this garden? Now, the key word answering the question at your disposal today is fenced. Fenced. What's to fence? To fence is to put a round guard, or is to put a guard around the object you want to guard. So therefore, in terms of mathematics, fencing gives rise to what's called perimeter. For perimeter means total distance around any object that has got any flat surface. Or it can give rise to what is called circumference. That is, if one is putting a guard around any circular object. For circumference means total distance around a circular object. Now, the question is, what's the shape of this garden? As I've read, the garden measures 10 meters by 8 meters. Also, that language shows that the first one is length and the next one is width. So It is in length 10 meters and 8 meters wide. Therefore, this garden is in the form of a rectangle, so it is rectangular. Therefore, distance around a rectangle gives rise to application of perimeter. And so, the formula for finding the number of poles around this rectangular garden is perimeter out of interval. Perimeter divided by interval. And remember, it's rectangular, and therefore the perimeter of a rectangle is got by a formula: length plus width plus length plus width. That's one of them. They are round 4. Another one can choose is length plus length plus width plus width. Another one can use is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. Then finally, one can say 2 into length plus width. Today, I've chosen to use length plus width plus length plus width. Which length is 10 meters and width is 5 meters. So continue to say perimeter equals 10 meters plus 8 meters plus 10 meters plus 8 meters. I associated here, this was called associative property, that helps us add or multiply numbers easily. So you pair here, that's what's called associative property, such that 10 and 8 are easily added to get 18 meters plus another 18 meters. And now 18 meters plus 18 meters, the distance around this rectangular garden is 36 meters. And remember, we have got the formula for getting the number of poles as perimeter divided by interval. Now look at the interval, that's the distance between the said poles. They are saying the poles are planted 2 meters apart. And now that perimeter has been given in meters, in this number we are saying that even the interval is in meters, for we are not allowed to go ahead unless we have got the same units. Now that the perimeter is in meters and the interval is also in meters, so do we go ahead to divide. You say 36 divided by 2, and now divide. 2 divided by 2 once, 3 divided by 2 is 1. Remainder 1, which one carries a 10, next to 6, which becomes a 16, divided by 2, you get 8. So the poles we need to fence this garden, actually 18. So 18 poles will be needed to fence this garden. So that's the way one gets the number of poles. Then question B, or part B of question number 1 reads, how many meters of barbed wire did she use? How many meters of barbed wire did she use? Remember, they are saying the barbed wire is mounted on poles, and we've got 5 lines of barbed wire. 1 line of barbed wire means distance around, or means perimeter of this particular garden. Therefore, you still find the perimeter of the whole of it. That is, if you don't trust the answer in A. But introduce perimeter by saying 1 line of barbed wire represents perimeter, and we have learned that perimeter of any rectangular piece can be got by getting 2, or writing a formula like 2 into length plus width, and then continue perimeter is equal to 2 into 10 meters plus 8 meters. 10 plus 8 you get 18 with meters, so twice 18 gives rise to 36 meters, like got in A. But of safety, to get the perimeter again, for the other answer can affect this one directly. That is negatively or positively, depending on how accurate or inaccurate it may be. So, as we said, 1 line of barbed wire represents perimeter. Now that perimeter is 36 meters, you say 1 line takes a 36 meter wire. What about 5 lines? We take 5 times 36 meters. Then in your side, you multiply 36 by 5. Whereby 5 times 6 is the 30. Write 0 and carry or regroup 3. 5 times 3, you get 8. 5 times 3, you get 15, plus 3, you get 18. So 5 lines of barbed wire take a 180 meter wire. So this person, that is Edith, used a 180 meter barbed wire to fence the garden by mounting 5 lines of barbed wire for safety. So in that way, you'll have answered part B as well. Then, example number 2 today reads, electric poles are planted 20 meters apart. Electric poles are planted 20 meters apart. How many poles are needed to cover a 2-kilometer road? As you know, the road is not in a polygon style like it is for other polygons, like a rectangle as answered in the first number. So the road is straight. So anything to do with straight road or planting poles along a straight road, the number of poles are got in this style. You say number of poles, equals length of the road out of interval plus 1. Number of poles equals length of the road out of interval plus 1. You say number of poles equals length of the road out of interval plus 1. Unlike the number 1 we have said perimeter divided by interval without necessarily adding 1, anything straight where poles are actually planted, you add 1. That's the original pole. That is before starting measuring the said interval of 20 meters, of 20 meters. So now, look at the units. We've got meters and kilometers. We've got meters and kilometers. Therefore, before anything is done, ensure there is harmony between, or agreement between the units. Hence, convert the greater unit to a smaller before anything is done. That's why we say length of the road in meters, because the interval has been produced in meters. So therefore, we say 1 kilometer is equivalent or equal to 1,000 meters. Then 2 kilometers, 2 times 1,000 meters. Then 2 kilometers equals 2,000 meters. Then you proceed on to finding the number of poles by dividing 2,000 by 20, then plus 1. The interval is 20. Then start your division. You divide by 10 by 10. Then divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 20 divided by, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 0 divided by 2 is a 0. And 0 divided by 2 is a 0. So the division has given rise to 100, then plus 1. Therefore, the poles we need, that's the electric poles, we need actually 101 poles. So this person planted 101 poles to have the whole 2-kilometer road covered with electric poles. Then we shall proceed to number 3. A man intends to fence his circular orchard 70 meters in diameter using posts placed 50 centimeters apart. It reads, a man intends to fence his circular orchard 70 meters in diameter using posts placed 50 centimeters apart. Question, how many posts will he require to do the job? How many posts will he require to do the job? Unlike the first 2 examples, whereby the first one, the garden was rectangular, and in number 2, the road was straight. Here, the orchard, that's a garden of fruit, trees, is circular. So if you plant posts around a circular object, in that way it calls for application of circumference, because circumference means total distance around any circular object. So instead of perimeter, you are going to use circumference. Hence, you say number of posts equals circumference divided by interval. Now, we don't have the circumference, but we have the interval, which is 50 centimeters. Thus, you find the circumference. It's widely known that circumference is given by the formula pi d, that is if diameter has been given, like t is given here. D means diameter, pi is the number of times the diameter fits the circumference. It fits 3/7 times, which makes pi, and then when you convert 3/7 to an improper fraction, you use, or you get 20/7. That's why you always replace pi with a 22/7. So we go circumference equal to pi d, circumference equal to pi times d, and circumference 22/7 times the diameter of 70 meters. So do you proceed through division? You say 7 divided by 7 once, 7 divided by 7 once, 0 divided by 7 is 0. Thereby remaining 22 times 10 centimeters. That's circumference 220 meters, actually meters. Circumference is called 220 meters. But remember, the interval has been given in centimeters. So, must you make an agreement between the two units before your division is made. Hence, change meters to centimeters by writing 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, 220 meters, 220 times 100 centimeters, and therefore 220 meters is equal to 22,000 centimeters. Then proceed, since we've got normalization of the two units, and divide. Get the number of posts. We've got a circumference as 22,000. Now divide by the interval of 50. Now divide by 10 by 10. Then by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 20 divided by 5 is a 4. Remember 2. That's now 20 divided by 5, get a 4. And then 0 divided by 5 is a 0. So how many posts therefore? There are 440 posts needed to fence this orchard. That's a garden of fruit trees, to safeguard it from theft or other entrants that are illegal. Then we shall go to example number 4 today. 40 electric poles are planted 30 meters apart. 40 electric poles are planted 30 meters apart. Find the distance from the 5th pole to the 20th pole. Now, they are spaced 30 meters apart. In that way, we must know how many 30 meter spaces do you have. That's why we say number of spaces equals last pole minus original pole. Number of spaces equals last pole in the question minus original pole. So the last pole is the 20th, and the original in the question is the 5th. Therefore, get a number of poles by subtracting 5 from 20, hence right, 20 minus 5, which is equal to 15 spaces. Each space or interval is of 30 meters. So you say one space is a representation of 30 meters, then 15 spaces represent 15 times 30 meters. In side working, you get 15 times 3. Remember to add on 0 thereafter. 3 times 5 is 15, right? A 5. And regroup 1 on the 10's place value. You say 3 times 1 is a 3, and the 1 regrouped. You get 45. Remember our 0 we left here 30. So 15 spaces represent 450 meter distance. So the distance between the 50th pole and the 20th pole is actually 450 meters. If you want any other help, you can call this same teacher Katimbo on 0776 251655. I repeat, 0776 251655. Otherwise, stay safe.